Do you ever find yourself running low on energy throughout the day, but you can't stand the taste of coffee? Well, great news. I have a remedy for that. It's called Raise Energy by Rep Sports. You're probably thinking, oh great, another energy drink with loads of sugar. But nope. Raise Energy takes a giant leap of faith with instilling a high-quality formula to bring the consumer a powerful yet sustained energetic experience to help push your workouts and focus in general to the very next level. With zero sugar and zero calories, that means zero crash. Perfect for anyone at any time. Raise Energy has become the most popular and best rated energy drink on the market to date, with a phenomenal flavor profile that puts most competitors to shame. So head on over to repsports.com, that's REPP sports.com, and receive 15% off your entire purchase when you enter promo code Third Eye at checkout. Again, that's promo code Third Eye at checkout. See what all the hype is about, and let's raise together.
For my goals, I'm close, I know, you ain't got to me so excited, I already know, got my eye on the goal, too close, I know, you ain't got to tell me so, cause I was summoned by God to be the greatest.
Welcome to another episode of Third Eye Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to creating open dialogue and conversation regarding any and all difficult topics. I am your host, Marcus Callahan, and thank you for joining me. Well, this week, I'm going to be talking about a little bit about Juneteenth and critical race theory, and I thought there was no better person to join me than my cousin, Mr. Dean. So, let's get right into it without further ado. How are you doing, Mr. Dean?
What's up? How's everything going, man?
Pretty good, man. Welcome back to Third Eye Podcast.
Good to be back. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been a minute since my listeners last heard from you, man. What's been going on with you?
Oh, not much. Just had last of 3 birthdays yesterday.
Okay.
This month. So, starting this clinical trial for this new medicine pretty soon, and yeah, hopefully some good stuff come out of that.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, birthday season is always rough, man.
It is.
Especially when they're back to back.
Well, thankfully, outside of my birthday, I have about 2 months before the next set of birthdays start.
Yeah, so like Evelyn, she kicks it off with September, and then we got, we'll have the new edition in November, and then Mal, then Mo, December, January, and then I get like 9 months without any birthdays.
Yeah, we're missing November as well. We got September, October, December, January, and then June.
Yeah, man. How the kids doing, man? They're all good?
Yeah, they're all doing pretty good.
That's what's up, man. Glad to hear it. So, man, it's a lot has happened since we last spoke, especially regarding Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday. What are your thoughts on that, man?
I mean, I didn't really celebrate Juneteenth. I did acknowledge it as a holiday prior.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, it's more, to me, it seems kind of like they've possibly found a way to make money off of it. It's kind of why they wanted to do that. But I feel like there's this kind of this strange, as you already know, there's always extremes, both sides to the argument. I feel like there's this kind of weird teeter-totter where there are people who are like, well, we shouldn't celebrate it because it's commercialized now, and they're just trying to throw us a bone so they don't do anything else for us. While there's other people that are like, well, we've been kind of fighting for this to be a thing for a while, and now it's a thing, and we want to celebrate. I'm kind of in the middle where I'm like, well, I've already acknowledged it as what it is. You know, I do kind of see they're probably taking advantage of it, and um, it is a step forward, but I don't think they should be praised for making that step forward.
I agree with you, man. I had already acknowledged that Juneteenth was a holiday, and its importance. Them making it a federal holiday, to me, yeah, they found a way to capitalize on it, because not only are businesses going to use this for more sales, and come get your Juneteenth, sale, all that bullshit that they like
Oh,
to
they
do.
got themselves a double whammy. They got Pride Month, and now they got Juneteenth within Pride Month. So
Yeah,
now
right.
they got themselves a double whammy. They got some good money coming in.
Absolutely. But Amanda and I were talking about it because the Delaware governor, he declared it a holiday, a state holiday. So they were all the state employees were getting a day off, and Amanda and I were talking about it, and we're like, it's great that they're acknowledging it, and I don't want to take away from the importance of what it means for them to actually acknowledge that happened, that the history happened and whatnot. But now what it's going to do is all the corporate people who are mostly white are going to get this day off, and all the people who are lower, who are mostly black, are going to still be working.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting? Nobody's paid attention to that. And somebody else brought up a good point. You're like, you know what? You know what they should do for Juneteenth, and that's a national holiday. Every black person should get a paid day off. It's reparations. And I'm like, you know what? I can't even argue against that. I wouldn't complain.
I wouldn't complain. No, please give me the day off.
Give me that paid time off.
Right? Yeah, man. It's like I'm happy that they're acknowledging it, but I don't want I
I
don't I don't want
feel
them to
like
bastardize it.
yeah, that's that. Yeah, I think that they're definitely gonna probably end up getting around to doing that. But I also feel like the climate for it is a little inappropriate too. You
Mhm.
know, we had a lot of things just kind of recently got happened, and it feels more like it's um, a bittersweet kind of thing. But to top it off, and of course, I've had to explain to a few people that I don't mean anything against the Asian community with this, but Stop Asian Hate caused law to be passed within a month.
Mhm.
Whereas while I'm not with BLM, I'm not with the organization, more so with the statement than anything else. We've had to explain why that's not an exclusive statement for how many years now? And we
Right.
still haven't gotten that law passed. In fact, there was a law that was being decided on. I can't even recall the name of it right now, but it didn't go through because
Mhm.
they claimed that it was racist.
Yeah, man. It's always touchy talking about this because I don't want my Asian brothers and sisters to think that I'm not standing with them. I'm very happy that they passed that law for you guys, because the hate that y'all were receiving is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And you and I being from a marginalized group, we understand that hate.
It's a very touchy subject because I've also experienced situations where you kind of see that hierarchy.
Mhm.
And I was actually talking about this with my wife, as she's Japanese. I was speaking
Right.
on it with her, and it was actually something she didn't understand, and I explained it to her. I'm like, listen, when we came up, there were certain things we couldn't say to other races of people that weren't white, right? And we
Mhm.
respected that. Meanwhile, those other races of people, who include Asians, Latinos, and amongst others, did not share that same respect with us because there's always been this hierarchy of they are the better, lesser people. And I explained to her that, even with her mother used the word colored and didn't really understand that. And she thought that, well, no, she had to understood, right? And I'm like, no, it's very likely she didn't understand because the time that she grew up, they weren't shown that that's wrong to say. And they weren't shown, and even though they, recognized that, there was a bit of racism and stuff going on with white people and black people, they still didn't, like, it never registered in their head that they shouldn't say those words.
Right.
So I understand why she used it and didn't understand that the problem, because they kind of swept it under the rug, and a lot of the other races don't understand that. So I kind of feel like that law being passed, like I said, it should be passed. Like, any type of hate towards anybody should not be allowed to stand out here. But the fact that that has been passed when we've been having these issues go on for the past, well, I mean, longer than you and me even been alive, but more
Right.
recently, we've had even more of an uprising of, like, stuff come to the forefront, and we can't even get a simple law passed without it being called racist. It kind of shows me who's being prioritized.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about that, but I mean that's how it's always been, right? Like, we're always the last. We're always the last on the totem pole, and history proves that, and that's exactly why they're trying to stop people from teaching that history.
Yeah.
You know, you can't really ignore something when it's being taught to you or when it's right in your face. But if you can sweep it under the rug, then you
Now,
can.
what I find interesting, because I was actually speaking with somebody about this the other day. She's part of the crew that we're, doing our gaming group. She didn't. There's a lot of things that she didn't understand. We were actually talking about the N word, and she didn't understand. Like, well, if it's such a bad word, why do you guys use it? I don't think anybody should use it. And I was explaining to her, like, the reason why we find it okay for us to use it is because we took it and made it into something not necessarily a positive thing, but we kind of depowered it to a point where we feel comfortable using it with each other.
Right.
But I was, I was explaining to her that that is actually part of the longer list of words that were thrown at us that most people don't even know about, right? And I was explaining to, like, a lot of these little terms and stuff that we knew about growing up. That it's like, yeah, you didn't want to be called those things, And she had no clue. She had no idea about that. So it is important to talk about it, at least, if not teach it, to give people kind of an idea of, like, what it is that we're dealing with. But she also brought up a good point. She's like, well, why did they allow it for them to tear down that statue of Robert E. Lee? The statue was there to remind us not to ever do that again. And she at least understands that, like, statues usually glorify people. And even if that statue was there to kind of remind us of our history and that we shouldn't do that, maybe having it erected out in the city wasn't probably the best way to convey that.
Right.
And my thought process was maybe they shouldn't have torn it down, but rather put it in a museum. In fact, I even made the joke. I was like, we need a museum of America's mess ups. That's what we need. We need a museum of, this is what we've been doing in the past. Let's acknowledge it. Let's not do it again.
Right. It's not a bad idea. They have, the Museum for the Holocaust.
That's where I was coming from with that.
So why not have a museum dedicated to the other, well, I mean, America's atrocities?
Yeah. I think we should have a museum that speaks on that thing, and it'll teach people about, like, hey, this is what our history's been like. It's a little dirty, but we're trying to clean up.
Right, and that's the point that people are missing. We're not trying to make any white person feel guilty. We're not trying to say you need to apologize for what happened in the past. But it needs to be acknowledged so that we don't keep repeating these same things.
Yeah, and it needs to be acknowledged that, we're not exactly on an even playing field.
Right.
And this is something that turned me off from the conservative side of the argument, is that they don't seem to understand that, and they don't seem to understand that the reason they don't understand that is because they never had to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Even black conservatives.
Yep.
I've yet to see a black conservative that has dealt with those things, or you get the rare few that have and grew up in that, and they didn't their takeaway was different than what it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
They took it away as, oh, I got out of the hood, and I left that behind. When the reality of it is, the hood shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Exactly.
That's they didn't get that takeaway from it. So, that's kind of the issue I have with that. But on the other side, you kind of have the liberal side that do want people to apologize and pay for this and that, and I'm not with that either. I think we need to acknowledge it. We need to move forward in a way that kind of places us, on better footing with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I too do not subscribe to the you need to apologize for your ancestors' mistakes. Like, I mean, you can apologize to me all you want, and it don't mean nothing to me.
Right.
At the end of the day, all I want is for everyone to be on an even playing field. And I want us to be able to acknowledge and talk about the atrocities of the past. That way we can learn from them and move forward as a society.
Exactly. And I feel that the ones that feel like people are kind of jumping into a victim mentality, they don't understand that it's not so much that, it's so much the fact that we're not discussing this. So they don't have much to reference.
Mm-hmm.
But that, and honestly, like it's kind of weird to me that they make that argument, but then whenever we talk about films and stuff, and how you kind of want more films that represent the other side, that represented a lot of stuff that we did do in America and the adventure stuff. They never want to budge on those things. So they seem to be okay with having movies about slavery and all this other stuff, but then they want to say that we're falling into a victim mentality. Well, what do you expect when that's all we see?
Right.
That's all we're showing in movies and stuff.
Yeah, you can't show one thing over and over and over again and completely disregard every other aspect of it, and then expect the person to walk away not feeling like the victim.
Exactly.
Right? That just doesn't make sense. But for them to create laws basically outlawing the teaching of the past, I think it's ludicrous, man. Like, I don't understand the logic behind it.
This is the interesting thing, because I feel like there's an issue with both sides of the field with that, because it's like I mentioned before, you do have the liberal side that wants to tear down statues and this and that, and I don't think we should do that. We need to acknowledge that stuff's there, but they want to erase it, right? But then on the conservative side, you got people that don't want to teach it either.
Right.
So they both want to erase it in their own way, and my thought process is, no, we don't need to erase it. We need to acknowledge it, and we need to teach that happened. We need to get to a spot where it's like, hey, we understood that this happened, and we need to try to rectify that, and make changes accordingly.
Right. Absolutely, man. It's like, as a parent, if I do something that in the moment I'm not seeing how wrong it is, but after the fact I can reflect and see, oh, I shouldn't have handled it that way. It's not okay for me to tell my child, oh no, that didn't happen, or I'm not going to teach you why what I did was wrong. We're going to acknowledge it. I'm going to own up for my mistakes. And we're going to learn from it so that I don't keep repeating those same mistakes. Just like you as a child, if I'm pointing out something that you did, we're going to acknowledge it so you can learn from it so you don't continue the same mistakes.
Exactly. Now, I don't know in full detail what is taught in critical race theory. I haven't had a chance to research it. But from what I understand, it was already a course in college long before this conversation even started.
Yeah, absolutely it was. It was a course in college. They're trying to get it taught on like a elementary level, because we have what they teach us during Black History Month, which is really, if you've ever been to school, you know that you don't talk about Black history except for in that month. The rest of the school year is dedicated to white history.
I remember there was talk of like having a separate class for Black history, and I still don't agree with that. I think it all needs to be one thing. I think it all needs to be considered American history.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I don't think it should be Black history. I don't even think we should have a Black History Month.
Yeah,
it all needs to be American history because that's what it is, American history.
I always felt like the whole Black History Month as well as Juneteenth is one of those like they're throwing us a bone kind of things.
Yeah, man. It's at best it's performative, and I mean,
I've always felt that way about it. Like it just seems like they're just kind of like tap dancing a little bit for us and calling it a day, and not actually addressing the things that we want addressed.
Right, because they had the chance to pass the George Floyd bill. They've had multiple bills that they could have passed, but they were like, "No, we're not going to do that. But we will make Juneteenth a federal holiday for you, so all my white constituents can have the day off, and you still have to go to work."
Yeah. Nobody reads the fine print. That's the problem. I think I had somebody delete me off Facebook because I was trying to point that out. That look, we don't need to be praising them for making it a commercialized holiday. They're making money off of it, and honestly, it's probably not even what you think it is.
Yeah.
But I think they took that as like, oh, you've been complaining about Juneteenth. Now they make it illegal, and now you can't make up your mind. And I'm like, that's not the issue. We wanted people to know about Juneteenth. We didn't really care about the acknowledgement. It was more of making it a discussion.
Right.
And last thing we needed was them to make it a commercialized holiday as an excuse to not do anything else.
Exactly. It's crazy because like up until last year, the majority of the country didn't even know what Juneteenth was. And that's because it's not taught. Yeah, that's true. A lot of us didn't know for a while, and I learned about it because I did my own research.
Yeah,
and that's the exact problem. It's not taught at the level it should be taught.
Yeah, and I think it has to. See, now what I'm wondering, and I want to know what your opinion is on this. Some people think that it actually should effectively replace July 4th.
It's tricky. I don't think it should replace July 4th. I think it should be acknowledged that July 4th is not for everyone because not everyone was free. July 4th, 1776. Not everyone was free that day. So it should definitely be Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so it
I was
should.
gonna say, no, you go ahead.
It should definitely be acknowledged that not everyone was free that day, but it is still, at the time that America, for what it was, that's their independence. So yeah, go ahead, still celebrate that day. I'm not saying Juneteenth should replace it, but if you're gonna celebrate the 4th of July, keep that same energy for Juneteenth. That's all I'm
I
saying.
agree. I think that it should. I think they should rebrand it. It should be called America Day because it is. It is the day that America became America. So that part we could acknowledge that, but to call it Independence Day, I think is disingenuous because again, it wasn't Independence Day for everyone.
Right.
So I think I kind of agree with Juneteenth being the new Independence Day, but I also think that maybe July 4th could still be acknowledged as America Day, just rebranded.
Yeah. And America's good at rebranding stuff.
Oh yeah, they're very good at that. Shouldn't be a problem.
That's funny. I was actually having a conversation with Shanta last night about celebrating 4th of July. And to me, I've never really been big on celebrating the 4th of July. Not for historical purposes, just because I don't really care for the whole fireworks thing. Like, for one, I think it's a waste of money.
Yeah, it is. As I got older, I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. As I got older, I was like, get this. I'm not spending my money on the fireworks. But
I'll go over to Claire's house.
like the kids enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
So for that aspect, I don't mind partaking. But I'm not like people who spend upwards of hundreds of dollars on fireworks. No, I'm not doing all that.
Yeah, no.
You
I'm
gonna
the
get
same
this
way.
$20 box of fireworks and we gonna call it a day.
You gonna get these what is those little baggies you throw on the floor and pop them?
little
Poppers.
poppers.
You get your pack of them poppers, you're gonna be happy with that. I love those things as a kid, man. I love little poppers. The poppers are fun.
Yeah, I love
Mancho.
I love the poppers. I like the little sparklers. That's cool.
Poppers that is killer. Make sure to dance.
I seen this video on TikTok. This white woman, she was talking about a conversation she had with her black husband because she was, getting everything all decorated for the 4th of July. And he asked her, he was like, "How come you didn't do that for Juneteenth?" And she was like, "I honestly, until he asked me that, I never even considered it." And she like, and for her, being someone who was with a black man who, yeah, she acknowledged that she has white privilege, but that moment for her, she was like, that's when it really clicked. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think that's I think that is the one thing that makes it important that they commercialize it. That now it's easier for other people who didn't really know about it to acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's still a lot of groundwork to be done. We didn't really do anything for Juneteenth this year. We may start doing something next year. I'm still reconsidering the whole holiday thing in general. I'm not. It's always just another day to me, honestly. But
Right.
I do think it's a cause for discussion now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Did you happen to catch the sentencing of Derek Chauvin?
I did. I actually just read up on that a couple days ago. It was I think it was a couple days ago or yesterday. It was on Twitter. Yeah, somebody made the joke that was almost 3/5 a sentence that he probably should have gotten.
Oh yeah.
They would make that in reference to black people being 3/5 of a human being. And I did the math, and I'm like, you know what? Actually, it is almost 3/5 because it's actually a 40-year sentence out there, and 22.5 is Yeah, 3/5 is about 24. So yeah, it is about close. That was an interesting observation, even though it was a joke.
Right. Yeah, when I saw how many years he was getting, like, I couldn't help but roll my eyes because I was like, even like, even with convicting this dude, they still found a way to like minimize his punishment.
They'll find a way to sweep it under the rug.
Like, cause
He'll get out in 15 years. Tops.
see, yeah, for good behavior.
I think this is what I was. I think this is what we were discussing the last time. Not last time I was on, but like one of the times we were on about his sentencing. I was surprised they even put him in prison because
Yeah.
they were already talking about trying to get him. What was it? First degree. And I was like, no, they put first degree. He's not getting charged because there's
Yeah.
a loophole behind that. And sure enough, they did charge him, but now we see the result of that. How many months later?
Right. And then, he doesn't even have to really serve the full 22 and a half years because they give him credit for the time he's already been in there.
Yeah.
So,
You know what, man? We did get a statue of George Floyd, so it's okay now.
yeah, man. Kudos.
We
They,
got a statue.
they gave us a statue of George Floyd, and that pissed off a hell of a lot of people too.
I was just like, man. See, the weird thing is that there's a lot of people trying to say that we've effectively made George Floyd a hero, which is not the case at all. In fact, I think a lot of racist white people have done that
Right.
by saying he's a sacrifice, as if he wanted to die. um, but it's like, listen, we know this guy was garbage in his past. We know that. That has nothing to do with the situation now.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this guy did put his knee on his neck for a very long time, which he shouldn't have done. And he needs to answer to that. Doesn't matter who it was.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It doesn't matter what George Floyd did in the past. Like, to be perfectly honest with you, it doesn't even matter if he was trying to pay with the counterfeit 20. Your job as a police officer is not to execute people.
Yeah, it's not their job. Unless he's aggressing upon them and they have to handle business. And that wasn't the case.
And that wasn't the case. So, I understand. And again, them building the statue for George Floyd, to me, is performative because you're still not addressing the real issues. You're not addressing what we've asked you to address.
They're not addressing the issue and they're causing more division. Because to be real, if they really wanted to do something, even if it was performative, they would address, because they always bring up the woman that he robbed. Okay, so address that then. Put her to the forefront. See if you can find some closure for her.
Yeah.
Even if that's performative, it shows that you care enough about this talking point that you keep bringing up that you're going to actually do something about it. This whole statue thing, it's like it does nothing but cause even more division, because now we have to make this argument that, hey, we're still not making this guy a hero, but he is an example of a standard we need to set. That no matter how terrible this person is, if this is a situation where the cop is in the wrong, then the cop needs to answer for that, regardless of who this person is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's a conversation that's need to be had for a very, very long time. And they just seem to keep skating by it. and it's not okay.
It's just like if it's just like if say we believed OJ didn't do what he did, and now he's in prison for robbing a house, and we're like, well, he didn't do anything to that lady, so he should get off for robbing a house. No, his history and what he did or didn't do has nothing to do with what he got arrested for.
Exactly.
He robbed somebody's house. He was a fucking moron. He needed to answer for that. And honestly, he probably should have answered for that other stuff too.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely, man.
it's one of those things. You do something messed up, you need to answer for it.
It's fun. So I'm in the basement right now, and the boys' room is directly above me. And
give me a second. I gotta grab my charger. I forgot to bring the charger for my laptop.
Yeah, man, go ahead.
I don't want my laptop dying. All right.
Yeah, man. So the boys' room is directly above me, and I can hear Aveline in there scream, like singing at the top of her lungs, "Let it go." And I'm sitting here this whole time like, man, please don't let my microphone pick this up.
I'm not hearing it, so.
Good. So, at least 20 states have introduced legislation to block critical race theory from being taught in grades K through 12. As a parent who homeschools, right?
Right.
What would you say to the parents who are on the fence about having this taught to their children?
Now, it's tough to say because I don't know exactly what's in the curriculum.
Okay.
Now, do you happen to know what's in it?
I don't know the specifics, but I know pretty much the basis of it is like they want to, instead of teaching the whitewash version of what we get taught, they want to expose the children to what really happened. And that's, I don't know exactly what time period they're talking about, if they're talking about from all the way from the Atlantic slave to where we are now, but the goal is to tell history like it should have been told in the first place.
Now, if that's the goal, then I do think I would say to the parents that are on the fence now, if that is the actual goal, because like I said, we have to be very careful, because if they could say that that's what they're trying to teach, and they could be teaching something else, and that's kind of the issue that I have there. Now, if that is their actual goal, is to teach history as it happened, then I would say to anyone who's on the fence that maybe it needs to be taught from middle school onward, as opposed to elementary school, because I kind of feel elementary school, it's kind of a tougher sell to me, whereas like in middle school, a lot of things, even in my history class, I relearned a lot of things in my middle school history class comparative to elementary school. Now, as somebody who's homeschooling, I teach my kids both sides of history regardless. But for the parents that are on the fence, I would say look into it, to do some research and make sure that, just have a look at what's being taught in the curriculum. And, if you feel comfortable about that, try to see if you can talk with somebody who understands it, and, see if you can get a better understanding of that. I think we need to have an actual discussion about it. I don't think it's one of those things. I don't like the idea of them blocking it. I think it's something that we need to discuss. But again, I don't know exactly what's in the curriculum. Now now of course, people like to I think of the word here, take things out of context.
Right.
and they're trying to say, oh well, they're trying to teach them to hate white people or something. And I highly doubt that that's the case. But there is an issue with academia where we've gotten to a point of teaching things that are a little bit too far, quote unquote, woke.
Yeah.
And I think if that is the case, then I can understand their viewpoint. If that is the case, because I'm just fine with teaching history as it is. Not exactly fine with, as we discussed earlier, trying to make people apologize for something they had nothing to do with in the past.
Right. Yeah, man. I get that. I watched a video of I can't remember his name, but it was a general in the military, and he was being questioned about critical race theory. And I guess one of the Republican congressmen who were talking about it, they were accusing of the military academy teaching woke talking points or whatever he was trying to say. And the general, basically, he was like, he flat out said, he's like, I don't agree with the quote unquote woke teaching or whatever. He's like, but it's important to actually listen and try to understand what every side is trying to say, right?
Yeah.
And I think everyone can take a lesson from that, because you may not agree with critical race theory, but it is worth at least listening and being open to the conversation versus trying to just block it.
Yeah, I don't think blocking is going to do us any good.
Right? Yeah, and man, and that's really why people always ask me when they find out that I have a podcast, they're like, what made you do that? Why? And it's this exact reason, because we need to get to a point where we can actually talk to each other.
We need to have these uncomfortable conversations.
Like,
because even that conversation I mentioned earlier, where we were talking about the N-word and why black people continue to use it and stuff.
Yeah,
it made a few people in the group uncomfortable, but I'm not uncomfortable talking about it. I'll gladly talk about it. I'll gladly talk about anything, even if it's something that I'm wrong about. I'll gladly talk and debate it and whatnot, and see if maybe I learned something from it. I think we all need to be open to that.
absolutely, man. Growth only happens when you're uncomfortable.
Exactly.
So, I'm all for the uncomfortable conversations, man. And like you said, I'm really not all that uncomfortable talking about it.
I think it's just our upbringing. We came up in a time where you talked about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I even had this white friend. He legit asked me, why can't I say the N-word? I think we discussed it.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want to say. If you say it around the wrong person, it's gonna be a problem.
Right.
And he straight up asked me, so if I let you call me a cracker, can I say it? I'm like, okay, sure, cracker. Nowadays, see, this is the problem. See, this is the issue that we have with like both people being extreme, right? Because nowadays, the conservative probably call me a racist, whereas the old people will call him a racist.
Yeah. Yep.
Neither of us really gave a damn.
Nope. Oh man, that's funny. All right. Well, let's pivot for a minute. So you had to put things on hold, right? With the business. How's that going?
It's going. I'm doing some more research and learning a little bit more as I go. I did jump headfirst into it, as I do with most things, and I'm learning that hacking away at it is not working too well. So.
Yeah, man. you jumped. That's the first part that a lot of people don't even get to.
I took the leap.
You took the leap, right? And no one ever really knows exactly what they're doing. It's a learning process. So kudos for you at least taking the first step. Can you give us any spoilers about the game?
No spoilers at the moment. Hopefully, it'll be cool. Hopefully, people enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm sure they will, man. Have you started working on? Because I know you said you wanted to get into comics. Have you started pursuing that avenue yet?
I have started writing some things, and I'm also involved with a comic. I can't talk about it right now, but there is a comic book based on a particular series coming up that's in the works that I am helping out with.
Okay.
Hopefully we should see some soon though.
For sure, man. I'll definitely be on the lookout for that. I read an article the other day. And I remember, when I was on your podcast, we were talking about Powerpuff Girls. So they actually decided to reshoot the pilot. So I don't know what all they're changing, but from what I understand, it went under like a massive rewrite.
I feel that it's CW, so it's still gonna be bad. It's
probably, but
CW likes to write CW things, and I think that first script was already indicator of what direction they were trying to go with it, and I don't think any rewriting is gonna save it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I have hopes for it just because I loved the Powerpuff Girls growing up. It was one of my favorite shows. But I don't know how well that world will translate into real life.
I feel like the premise is already a hard enough sell on the level of Dragon Ball Evolution.
Yeah.
If somebody had told me the script to Dragon Ball Evolution before it had even went into production, I would have already said, listen, there's no kind of rewriting that's going to save that you'd have to go deep and rewrite it entirely. You can't use that same concept. And I think this is the same situation here. They're probably going to do some rewriting to save face, but I don't think it's gonna pan out. It's already a hard enough sell as is trying to get a live action Powerpuff Girls. The same way live action Dragon Ball is a very hard sell on its own.
I agree, man. I agree. Well, before we wrap this up, man, you got anything you want to plug?
Well, I mean, as you know, we have started a new little group that you should be part of pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
We're called the Ninjas of the Grid, but our tag name is Grid Ninjas. You can find us pretty much anywhere at Grid Ninja. Of course, as usual, I also do beat 'em up stuff, cover up a lot of beat 'em ups under Brawls Avenue, and of course, it's my company Abrit, in which we're gonna be working on the comic books, video games, and all that stuff in the future. And of course, you can find me anywhere under Demi Aubrey. Also, I did recently rebrand the Chill Spot podcast into the Abari podcast, given that those are one-on-one little podcasts and stuff, and we did kind of split off to the Grid Ninja brand as being the group podcast type of thing and whatnot. So I'd say be on the lookout for that. Probably on the same channel as my Demi Aubrey stuff. But we'll see.
That's what's up, man. Well, Mr. Dean, thank you very much for being another guest on my podcast. Always lovely to have you, man.
Hey, pleasure to be on. I'm looking forward to being canceled for that cracker comment earlier.
Nah, they can't cancel you, man. You're too important. You're too needed, man. All right, man. Take care.
Take care.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining me for another episode of Third Eye Podcast. Special shout out to Mr. Dean for being my guest. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man. I want to give a special shout out to the sponsor of this episode, Raise Energy. Please go check that out. I just want to express how much it means to me to have all of my listeners continue to listen and to continue to keep giving me positive feedback and constructive criticism, because it only helps me in the outrun or in the long run. So I do appreciate you guys for doing that. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I never thought that I would have this many listeners. It just blows my mind. So thank you guys. Tune in next week for another episode. You know the deal, guys. I love you all, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So please, love each other and be kind to one another. Have a good night.